Hello, everyone, and welcome to another No Man's Game Quickie. I'm your host, Wesley Fink, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most celebrated essays of the past year. Of course, we're talking about James Anthony Reedon's award-winning essay, A Big Fat Review of a Big Fat Review of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. So, in making this essay, Anthony Reedon kind of, as he puts it in his first sentence, it's more of an analysis than a review on famous YouTuber Arlo's video, A Big Fat Review of The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. And Reedon separates the essay into a series of different sections, those being the magic of exploration, presentation, sound, and atmosphere, um, story and characters, difficulty, combat, and progression, traversal, physics, and crafting. What else? I'm scrolling through my copy right now. Shrines, dungeons, and quests, a new era of Zelda, the end, and a bibliography. So the review, pretty much all of the sections, most of the sections are summarizing what Arlo said in his Big Fat Review. However, I did not watch that video, so I can't evaluate Anthony Reedon on whether or not he aptly summarized Arlo. Instead, I'll just take him at his word. And if you want to know what Anthony Reedon said about, the summarization, you can do that on your own. So I'm going to start by looking at section 1, the magic of exploration, and looking at Anthony Reedon's analysis on Arlo. I think it's really interesting how Anthony Reedon talks about how Arlo omitted Hestu's gift, because it actually offers quite an interesting um, counterpoint to what Arlo is trying to say. Arlo is talking about how exploration is unlimited in the game and how, the game encourages that exploration. However, by bringing up Hestu's gift, you know, the motivation to explore is depressed by this, as Anthony Reedon points out. And I think that's kind of a really apt point about how, it's kind of a two-way street. While there is a lot of freedom in the game, not all of it, not all of it is encouraged. So, so now we're going to be looking at section 2, presentation, sound, and atmosphere. Now, one of the points that Reedon brings up in his analysis on Arlo is that he disagrees with the Goron designs being a little unoriginal, and I would actually like to take this moment to disagree with Anthony Reedon and um, agree with what Arlo is saying, in that I feel like all of the other character designs, from the Zora to whatever the name of those bird people are, those designs are kind of very unique and fresh takes on their characters. The Zora have never looked like that before that game. Korok's kind of look the same, but whatever. But the Gorons look pretty much like they do in pretty much every other game. Sure, there's some differences, but there's not a ton of variation there. And so I think that's somewhere where Anthony Reedon kind of misses there. But I do agree with him talking about how, the him lamenting the fact that there aren't enough catchy tunes in the game as there are in other Zelda games, which I agree. I mean, Ocarina of Time has so many iconic songs, and from Breath of the Wild, I can only remember whatever that little jingle is with the Guardians. So, yeah, I agree with reading there. And now we're going to look at section 3, story and characters. Um, I've not read this part yet. Hold on. All right, I read this section, and I think that I agree with what Reedon says here in his kind of analysis portion. However, or not however, sorry. I agree, and I love that Reedon talks about how the kind of characters are supposed to be legends, and I think that really something I honestly never really thought about, and I think is kind of a really cool way to think about this, that it's called The Legend of Zelda, and it's about kind of retelling, a tale like how we talk about the tales of the Greeks or the Norse and God of War. And so I think it's kind of cool how he frames, how Reedon kind of talks about it being a legend, because it really does kind of give you a new appreciation for how Nintendo approaches it, and really kind of changes the way you think about Zelda in general. It's not just another video game, but this is a story that's being passed down from generation to generation. And now we're going to be looking at part four, difficulty, combat, and progression. So with his analysis, I think Anthony Reardon brings up a really interesting point about how Arlo does not talk about the Master Sword, which does kind of undermine that system of durability. I think that's a good point. I think it's true. Um, but I mean, I think that the Master Sword kind of had to be designed that way, because, or else it would defeat the what the Master Sword represents. You know, it's supposed to be the weapon that slays Ganon and helps the hero in his journey. So I think I agree with Anthony Reardon there, but however, I see why Nintendo chose what they did. And now we're going to be looking at traversal, physics, and crafting. So one of Anthony Reardon's main points in this section is how the crafting system is kind of a bit lackluster, which I definitely agree with. I think that, you know, it's kind of a very bare bones system, and it's something that I personally hope that in Breath of the Wild 2 is something that, you know, Nintendo kind of addresses and really fleshes out. Because I agree, at that point, there's not really, doesn't really feel like there's much to do with it besides kind of cooking and stuff like that. And yeah, I agree with him that the what did he say? The health stuff and upgrading armor works well. I agree with that. And now we're gonna look at shrines, dungeons, and quests. I have to disagree a bit with Anthony Reardon on his analysis in this section, just in the way that he disagrees with Arlo that the blights kind of blend together. Um, I kind of gotta agree with Arlo. I think they're very similar. They're the same boss with different variations, and I kind of would have liked to see. I think that wouldn't be such an issue if it wasn't for the fact that Nintendo in past Zelda games have really shown how they're, you know, capable of making unique bosses, and I think that that's something that's kind of lost in this game, you know, and that if you look at Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess, which have such unique bosses as Boingo Boingo, or that weird octopus lady in Skyward Sword, or like the weird skeleton guy in Skyward Sword. And so I think that there could have been some more uniqueness besides just the same boss with different elements. And then we're gonna look at the last section here. Well, the last kind of main section, a new era of Zelda. Um, one second, I haven't read this section yet. Okay, I actually read this section now, and I think that Reedon's ultimate review of a 10 out of 10 is very fair. I think this definitely is, you know, an incredibly important game, and I'm glad that Arlo and James gave it a 10 out of 10. It's such an amazing game in my opinion. It's the reason I bought a Nintendo Switch, and I mean, as a huge Zelda fan before this game, it just reinforced, you know, what I loved about the series. And the last section is just the end where James states that Arlo thanked him for watching, which is nice. I would have appreciated if Reading also kind of left like a thanks for reading. I think that would have been kind of nice, and you know, I'm a little upset that he didn't, but you know, I think his citation is good. He cited the Arlo video. Um, Overall, final thoughts. There's a couple of grammar issues throughout, kind of misusing, well, grammatical and other kind of, you know, writing errors where he misplaces or forgets periods. He, you know, um, doesn't use quotation marks correctly, which is fine, but it does definitely, you know, mess with the experience a little bit. But overall, I think Reed provides some great summarization of what Arlo has to say. And as someone who never watched Arlo's review and probably never will, I think, you know, I kind of got the gist of what Arlo had to say. And I think that Reedon provided some nice commentary on top of that. So, yeah, overall, I think this is a great review. If I had to give this a big fat review of a big fat review of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild by James Anthony Reid. If I had to give it a rating, I would probably if I were to put it, I'd probably say this is an A, a strong A to a light S tier. Yeah. So, thanks for watching or not watching, listening to this episode of No Man's Game Quickie. The next episode probably will never come out, but if it does, that'd be pretty cool. And thanks for waiting all these years for another one to come out and for me to review this. Merry Christmas, everyone.